My name is Natalie Harris. One weekday morning, I was reviewing my savings account to finalize the loan paperwork for a piece of lakeside land I had dreamed of buying, when the bank called. They said I was about to miss a payment deadline on a mortgage loan of over $400,000. I hadn't borrowed a single cent. But the paperwork had my signature, my information, and even my social security number. Cosigner? My younger brother, Logan. And something even worse was waiting for me that weekend, when my mother invited me to visit the new family lake house, the same one I had once quietly dreamed of building a small cabin on with my own hands. Have you ever been betrayed by someone in your own family? They didn't just take money, they took your dream. Leave a comment if you've ever gone through something similar. Like and subscribe if you want to hear the rest of the story. Because what I'm about to share, you won't believe it. I still remember vividly the day that changed everything in my family. I was just 14 years old when my father died suddenly of a heart attack while fixing the roof. He was the only one in the family who truly understood me, the only one who had ever told me, "Natalie, you can become anything if you're willing to work for it." After the funeral, my mother, Carol, was no longer the same. She grew withdrawn, forgetful, and began depending on me for everything. I didn't blame her. I knew the pain of losing a life partner was impossible to describe. But from that day forward, every responsibility in our family landed on my shoulders. Meals, bills, getting my brother to school, and managing the household finances when Mom was too checked out to do anything but stare out the window for hours on end. Logan was only 9 at the time, a mischievous, clingy little boy who had a talent for using tears to draw attention. Every time he messed up, he just had to tear up and look at Mom, and she'd turn to me with that soft, almost reproachful tone like I was the problem. "He's still a child, Natalie. Don't be so harsh with him." I wasn't harsh. I only asked why Logan took money from my wallet to buy a video game. I only reminded him not to break into my room again. But somehow, all my words got labeled as lacking compassion. From then on, in my mother's eyes, I was cold, stubborn, and incapable of love. At 17, I was accepted on a full engineering scholarship to the University of Michigan. It was a real dream. I'd worked all summer to get ready to move. Logan, meanwhile, was skipping school, smoking, getting into fights with neighbors. A week before I was supposed to leave, my mother came into my room, her face clouded with worry. "Natalie, I don't think you should go. Logan is struggling. I can't handle it alone. I can send money home, Mom. The school covers room and board. I just need to study. But family is what matters most. You can't leave your brother like this." I stayed silent for a long time. Then I nodded. The scholarship was revoked after I didn't enroll on time. No one brought it up again like it had never existed. I quietly found work at a construction site nearby, started as a technician's assistant, and eventually took night classes to keep learning. In the years that followed, Logan spiraled. He started trade school, dropped out, found jobs, got fired for showing up late, lying, or fighting. Whenever he hit rock bottom, lost his car, got evicted, couldn't pay bills, he came back to my mother and me. And every time Mom turned to me, "Natalie, can you lend your brother a little? Just until he gets back on his feet." "He's been getting back on his feet a dozen times now, Mom. He has no one else but you." So I gave him money. More than once, I had to dip into the savings I'd worked for years to build toward a home. I was used to putting myself last. So used to it, in fact, that when Ethan, the only man I've ever loved, broke up with me, I wasn't even surprised. "I can't keep standing on the sidelines of your family drama. I see how exhausted you are, Natalie. I see how they drain you. But you never say no to anyone except yourself." At the time, I didn't fully understand what he meant. I just watched him walk out of the apartment, an apartment I paid for alone, and I didn't chase after him. Time passed. I settled into a job at a large construction firm. I got promoted, led major projects. I started saving again for the dream of buying land by the lake and building a little cabin, a place where I could spend weekends without hearing Logan call at midnight asking for money. But nothing was ever simple with my family. Logan called in the middle of a meeting. Mom left a long voicemail, voice trembling, saying Logan had finally found a fresh start, that they might be able to buy a small place for the two of them near the lake. I didn't think much of it. I assumed they'd rent somewhere for a while, then move back to the city after a few months, like every other time, until the bank called. That was when I realized, For years I had let them test the limits of my boundaries, and I never pushed back. I didn't speak up when Mom took my birthday money from Grandma to pay for Logan's dance classes. I didn't say anything when my stepfather drained our joint account to pay off gambling debts. I didn't stop them as they turned my life into their emergency fund, one piece at a time. But this time was different. They had used my name to buy the very dream I'd been saving for. And I was finally ready to take it back. I drove nearly 3 hours from Denver to the Evergreen Lake area. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon, the sky clear, the air carrying that early autumn chill that makes everything feel a little more vivid. I wasn't sure what I expected from this trip. My mother had only sent one brief message: "Come visit us at the lake this weekend. Logan and I have a surprise for you." I had looked at lake houses in that area before. There was one I'd saved to my favorites. A small home nestled deep among pine trees with a porch facing the water. It was perfect for quiet reading days and forgetting the world. But it was above my budget, so I let it go. As I turned onto the gravel road that led into the neighborhood, my heart began racing. A strange sense of knowing settled over me and I couldn't calm it. Then I saw it. That exact house. The weathered wooden porch with the broken step I'd stared at dozens of times on my screen. The gray stone walls, the wide glass doors facing the lake. A silver pickup truck parked in front. Logan pulling a case of beer from the bed, whistling. My mother stood on the porch, laughing with someone inside. Probably my stepfather. I parked by the pines and stepped out. The sound of my car door slamming made all three of them turn around. "You're here," Mom called out, waving as if everything were perfectly normal. I walked forward, eyes fixed on the house. Every detail familiar to the point of being eerie. "This is your new house?" I asked, my voice strained from holding everything in. "It's for the family," she corrected gently. "We finally have a proper place to relax together." Logan stepped up and handed me a soda. "You didn't think we could pull this off, huh? But we made it work." "How?" Kept my gaze steady. "The bank told me my name is on the mortgage. My social security number. My address. My signature. Explain that." Mom faltered for a moment, then softened her tone. "Natalie, you're smart, you're good with money. I thought you'd understand. Logan needed a fresh start. He's trying, you see? He's been to a few interviews. Did I ever say it was okay to borrow over $420,000 in my name?" "It was for the family," she emphasized. "Surely you're not upset over that?" "Upset? This is the house I wanted to buy. This exact one. I had it on my watch list. And you knew that." Logan gave a smug little laugh. "Well, that's great then. No more dreaming. It belongs to all of us now. You can finally enjoy it instead of working yourself to death." "I don't enjoy anything when someone steals my name to turn my dream into someone else's prize." "You never gave me anything," Logan said, letting the soda can drop onto the porch step. "Ever since I was old enough to realize everyone favored you, I knew you only lived for yourself. Me. What did I get? I'm nothing without your help. And you never really helped me." I looked at my brother, barely recognizing the person in front of me. Logan used to be the kid who cried when bullies teased him at school. I used to carry him home when he sprained his ankle, used to give him my lunch so he wouldn't go hungry because Mom forgot to pack his. "Mom was right," I said slowly. "I'm good with money. I know how to work, how to save. But no one gets to use that as an excuse to rob me blind." "Don't say rob," Mom pleaded. "We borrowed. Once the house sells, everything will be put right. It's just temporary, sweetheart." I tightened the strap on my purse. "And in the meantime, if I hadn't found out, you would have kept taking? For how long? Until there's nothing left of me but a ruined name and a destroyed credit history?" Mom didn't respond. She looked over at Logan as if searching for backup. But Logan had turned away, silent. In that moment, I realized everyone here knew exactly what they had done. They were just hoping I'd stay quiet, like I always had. But I wasn't going to stay quiet anymore. I left the lake house that very afternoon. When I closed my car door, I didn't look back once. Logan called out, voice sharp and mocking, "You'll regret this." My mom stepped off the porch, fear flickering in her eyes, but she didn't say a word. As if they still believed I'd go silent again and everything would reset. But I saw too clearly now. And I wouldn't stay silent, not one more minute. That evening, I drove to Mia's apartment. She was my closest friend and a former colleague from my days at a commercial bank. She now worked as a senior manager at one of Denver's largest financial branches. We'd first met at a financial risk seminar, and she always told me I was the only person in the field she genuinely trusted. I told her everything in quiet detail, while the sound of the kettle boiled in the background and the wind rustled against the windows. Mia frowned. They used your information without an actual signature? I never signed any mortgage documents, I answered, my voice almost numb. Give me the account numbers, the application IDs, anything you have. I'll dig into the internal system and trace back the approval process. If they used a scan of an old signature or forged something, I'll find it. Mia spent over an hour digging. While she worked, I just sat there staring at my now cold tea. I thought I had prepared myself for the worst. But when Mia finally returned to the table holding a thick stack of printouts, I knew I hadn't been ready at all. Brace yourself, she said, laying the pages in front of me. There, in black and white, were details of 6 loans taken out in my name over the past 3 years. Nearly $680,000 total. Each one used my social security number, a backup email I'd used once and forgotten, and my old college address. I flipped through each page, feeling my stomach turn icy. Here's a scan of the signature, Mia pointed out. Look. I looked. The signature was frighteningly similar to mine, but I knew immediately. The strokes were stiff, unnatural, missing the fluid rhythm of my actual handwriting. They had copied it from an old document, digitized it, and inserted it. Where did they start? I asked. Mia tapped the first page. With an authorized user card on your revolving credit line when you were 26. Remember? When your mom asked you to temporarily cover your visit for his broken arm. I nodded, remembering exactly. They said it was temporary. I believed it was temporary. A year later, they opened 3 more cards in your name, all linked to an address your stepfather registered with the bank. Then they leveraged your strong credit history to apply for the mortgage on the lake house. And this, she pointed to a red highlighted line on the final page, is the second mortgage they just filed last week. Fast-tracked for home renovations. But in reality, to cover debt, I finished for her. Who does Logan owe? Mia hesitated. I found 2 suspicious payments to a digital wallet in Las Vegas, routed through a proxy. The recipient's name is Mark Lester. Likely a bookie. I went cold. Logan had struggled with gambling back in community college. I thought he'd moved past it. Your stepfather co-signed that latest application. But this is the part that made my blood boil. Mia pulled out another sheet, the guarantor affidavit. This is your signature. I took it. A notarized copy, stamped by the bank. My signature at the bottom, rigid, fake, clearly forged. He used to work in banking, I murmured. He knew exactly how to forge it so it wouldn't raise red flags. Mia nodded. Exactly. And because he was once an insider, he knew how to use one of your old accounts, how to slip past a weak verification system. No alerts were triggered. Everything matched too perfectly. Except for one detail. I looked up. The signature on the latest loan doesn't match the biometric signature you filed with the IRS last year. The new system is rolling out across major banks. If one of them flags a mismatch, they'll do a manual review. And they'll find out, I said, eyes on the thick pile of documents in front of me. They'll uncover everything. Mia sat down across from me, her voice lower now. You were deceived. Not just once. For 3 straight years. They treated you like a backup wallet without asking. Without warning. I didn't cry. Something inside me felt like it had frozen. I thought about all the times I'd swallowed my pride to forgive. All the times I dipped into my savings to cover tuition, bills, Logan's rent. All those times I did it willingly. But they didn't ask. They said nothing. They just forged. Mia placed her hand gently on my wrist. This isn't just a family issue anymore. It's a criminal offense. And you have more than enough proof. I gripped the folder, hearing the soft rustle of paper like the echo of truth I could no longer ignore. I need to speak to a lawyer, I said quietly. And you need to be ready, Mia replied. Because once you start, there's no turning back. I looked at her, my voice firmer than ever. Then we go all the way. 2 days later, I received a dinner invitation from my mother. Her text message carried the same tone she always used. Light, vaguely sweet, like nothing had happened. Let's have dinner as a family. It'll help clear the air. I made your favorite dish. Logan will be there too. Not a word of apology. Not a single mention of what they'd done. I wasn't planning to go. But I remembered what Mia had said. They don't think you'll fight back. If you want to reclaim your power, sometimes you have to show them your silence is over. I arrived on time carrying a small handbag. Inside was a tiny recorder I'd once used for a critical project meeting. I pressed record before I stepped out of the car. My childhood home hadn't changed much. The walls were still pale yellow, the sofa still covered in the same old embroidered cloth. In the kitchen, Mom was ladling soup, my stepfather was pouring wine, and Logan sat with his feet up on the table, scrolling through his phone. It looked like a peaceful scene, but beneath the surface was an earthquake I no longer had the strength to hide. You're here, Mom looked up, trying to smile, but I saw how her eyes avoided mine. I sat across from Logan. No one mentioned the lake house. No one brought up the bank. The meal began with small talk. Something about a neighbor's new dog, Logan applying for a job somewhere, my stepfather fixing the bathroom faucet. I let them talk. I ate a few spoonfuls of soup, set my spoon down, then looked up at my mother. Are you planning to say anything about the mortgage in my name? She froze. Logan sighed loudly. My stepfather raised an eyebrow. You're still not over that? She asked, voice tight. I can't just get over it, Mom. That's financial fraud. It could lead to federal charges. Don't exaggerate, my stepfather interjected, face flushing. It's just a few signatures. No need to drag the law into it. My signatures. On 6 different loans. Totaling nearly $700,000. Logan slammed his hands on the table. Oh my God, again with this. Like you're the only victim in the world. Have you ever shared anything with this family? You only ever lived for yourself. I turned to him, my voice calm. I paid for your first year of tuition. I co-signed your first apartment lease. And I paid off 3 maxed-out credit cards for you. You did that voluntarily. Logan snapped. No, I replied slowly. I did it because I was pushed into the role of the strong one, the one who always sacrifices, the role Mom assigned me since I was a child. While you lived like the world owed you everything. Mom set her spoon down, her hands trembling. If you go to the police, you'll destroy this entire family. No, I looked her straight in the eyes. You let them destroy me, piece by piece. The room froze. My stepfather slammed his palm on the table. You don't get to talk to your mother like that. Who do you think you are? I stood up. I'm the only person in this house who's never stolen from someone else. The only one who can face the truth with my head held high. Logan shot up and threw a glass of water toward me. It splashed across the table, soaking the tablecloth. Get out. If you're not going to help, then stop ruining everything. I didn't move. I looked at them, my mother, my stepfather, my brother, all tense, angry, panicked. But not one of them apologized. No one admitted what they did. All I saw was fear. Fear because I dared to expose them. I slowly reached into my bag, pulled out a small recorder and placed it on the table. I recorded this entire conversation, I said. Don't worry, I'll send a copy to my attorney. You wouldn't dare, Mom gasped. I would, I replied evenly. And I will. Because this isn't just a family matter anymore. This is about justice. I picked up the recorder and turned to leave. The sound of chairs scraping, Mom crying, Logan shouting, all of it blended behind me. But I didn't look back. I knew if I did, I might falter. And I wasn't going to falter ever again. I spent all of Monday morning in my lawyer's office, a quiet glass-walled space on the 12th floor of an old building in downtown Denver. Outside, cars lined the highway in endless rows, part of a world that still functioned normally, while mine had just cracked open completely. My attorney, Harriet Dawson, was in her 60s, hair neatly tied back, voice low and steady. She used to be a federal prosecutor specializing in financial fraud before opening her own practice. From the moment I sat down across from her, I felt safe. I've reviewed the documents Mia sent over, she said as I placed the recorder and all my copies on the table. There's clear evidence of forged signatures and enough for a criminal case of identity theft and bank fraud. I nodded, my hands clenched tight under the table. Your stepfather worked in finance, correct? Yes. He was a credit manager at a local bank. Took early retirement 6 years ago. Then this makes it worse. He knew exactly what he was doing, and that it was illegal. She looked up at me. Are you ready to file an official complaint? I was ready the moment they looked at me like a stranger after stealing my entire future. That same day, Harriet filed the first documents, a motion to freeze assets with the county land office, requesting a halt on all transactions tied to the lake house due to suspected fraud. She also sent formal notices to 3 banks involved, asking for a full audit of any accounts or loans opened in my name in the past 5 years. Later that afternoon, Harriet and I met with a fraud investigator at the largest bank on the list, where 2 of the biggest loans had been processed. His name was Carl Raines, a man in his 50s with a serious face and sharp eyes. He flipped through the file I'd brought, nodding slowly every time he spotted a red flag. The signatures don't match. Verification emails came from a secondary address. Phone authorizations weren't recorded. These are all gaps, he said. Do you have exact dates for when the loans were submitted? I do, I said, handing over Mia's timeline. 3 of them were signed within 4 weeks. At that time, I was on site for a project in the Midwest. I have travel documents to prove it. Perfect. We'll need proof you couldn't have signed them. Carl turned to Harriet. We'll begin an internal investigation. If we confirm the forgery and Harris is indeed the victim, we'll freeze the associated assets and report it to the state's financial crimes unit. As we left Carl's office, Harriet paused in the hallway and placed a hand on my shoulder. I've seen many victims stay silent out of fear of losing their family. You're different. You chose justice. I didn't even have to think. Because I lost my family a long time ago. They just never said it out loud. 2 days later, I received an email from the local notary office. The lake house property file was officially frozen due to suspected fraud. A field agent would be dispatched to inspect and verify the current occupant's legal rights. That evening, Logan texted me. What the hell are you doing? Mom can't sleep. The house has an investigation notice. What do you want? I didn't reply. The next day, I received a call from an unknown number. It was the county bank's fraud examiner. They wanted me to file an official complaint with full supporting documents. I'll be there, I said. Harriet helped me compile everything. Transaction records, the recording from the dinner at my mother's house, and proof I was out of town during each signing. With all this, Harriet said as she sealed the file folder, we not only have grounds for a criminal case, but we can also pursue civil damages. Do you want to file both? I stayed quiet for a few seconds, then nodded. They don't just owe me money. They owe me the truth. And I want everything documented. No more lies. I signed the complaint. My name sat at the top of the page. Below it were the names of my stepfather, Logan, and even my mother, as accomplices in forgery and the illegal legitimization of assets. As I put pen to paper, my fingers trembled slightly. But my heart was steady. I was on a job site in northern Aurora, inspecting the flood control system for a community project, when my phone rang. It was my mother's number. I stared at the screen for a few seconds. The sky that day was overcast, thick gray clouds stretching across the horizon. I felt a storm rising in me to match the one above. I answered the call, held the phone to my ear, and said nothing. Her voice came through instantly, shaking and full of tears. Frank was arrested this morning. The police came at 8 o'clock. They handcuffed him right in front of the house. Logan is missing. The police can't find him. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. I had prepared for this. But even when you know it's coming, it still hits hard. You did this just to get revenge? She asked, almost screaming. You really want to destroy this family? My voice stayed calm. I didn't do it out of anger. I did what was right. You sent your stepfather to prison. No. He sent himself there when he forged loan documents, when he used my identity to dodge debt, when he thought no one would notice. And Logan, you know how he's lived these past few years. There was silence on the other end. Only the faint sound of wind through the receiver and footsteps from someone walking across the construction yard. I sat down on a metal bench beside the supply shed. Looked up. The sky was about to break. You used to teach me that if you do something wrong, you have to take responsibility. I continued, my voice steady. Now it's time for everyone else to do the same. But, we're family, Natalie. Her voice cracked. We can't let it go this far. Too far. I let out a bitter laugh. You think this hasn't gone far enough? I gave up college because you needed me to stay. I worked 10 straight years without a single real vacation just to clean up Logan's messes. And now, when I'm finally building a life of my own, you all take everything I saved? And you're still talking about family? I just thought you were strong enough to handle it. No one is born to carry the burden for someone else, Mom. I stood up, my voice sharp. And you should know that better than anyone. The call ended in silence. No goodbye. No apology. That afternoon, I got a call from Harriet. Police executed the search warrant at the lake house. They found more forged documents in Frank's home office. Copies of your signature, altered forms, even a USB drive with files in your name. The department is treating this case very seriously. I wasn't surprised. But hearing about the USB made my skin crawl. They had planned to use me until there was nothing left. I think he knew this day would come, Harriet said. The way he stored everything, not like someone who thought he'd never get caught. More like someone who hoped you'd never have the courage to act. I looked out the window. Rain had started to fall, soft drops streaking down and vanishing into the concrete below. The next morning, I opened my email and found a notice from the second bank. The collateral under my name used in the second mortgage had been frozen. An internal investigation would begin. The case officer's name caught my attention. Jennifer Crane, a former colleague of Frank's. I called Harriet immediately. She arrived 30 minutes later with additional documents in hand. Jennifer is going to be questioned, she told me. She may have helped push those files through underwriting. This isn't just a family case anymore, Natalie. It's a network. People abusing their positions, turning someone like you into a target. I didn't say anything. But inside I could feel something in me cracking open. Not from pain but from the strange relief of finally being protected. Never in my life had the truth been so clearly placed where it belonged. And never had my family seemed so bare. No more excuses. No more performances. Only consequences, each one to be faced alone. The courtroom that morning was more crowded than usual. Not because the case was particularly big or media-worthy, but because people were curious. Curious about a woman who had chosen to bring charges against her own family, in a town where family was supposed to be untouchable. I wore a soft blue blouse, black slacks. No makeup, just a bit of lip balm to cover the dark circles from too many sleepless nights. Harriet sat beside me, her hand resting on the folder like a quiet reminder that I wasn't alone. Across from us, my stepfather sat slouched, his face gaunt. He wore a light gray suit, his tie loose. My mother was absent, citing health reasons. Logan, still missing. A federal warrant had been issued 2 weeks ago, but he had seemingly vanished from Denver. The judge nodded for me to take the stand. I rose. My knees wobbled slightly, but every step I took was solid. I had waited months for this moment. Now it was time to speak. I opened my folder, took a deep breath. Your Honor, my name is Natalie Harris. I'm a daughter, a sister, someone always expected to be strong. And I upheld that role for 30 years. I didn't just care for my family after my father's death. I gave up a full college scholarship to stay home and help my mother. I supported my brother through everything, from meals to medication. I paused, eyes locking on the man who used to sit across from me at dinner. But I am not a bank. I am not an unlimited credit card. I am not a puppet anyone can use to borrow hundreds of thousands of dollars using my name, my signature, my social security number, without my consent. My voice wavered slightly but didn't break. Family doesn't mean you get to rob each other and call it love. Family doesn't mean hiding manipulation, fraud, and betrayal behind the word loyalty. I lowered the papers, scanning the room. I'm not here out of hate. I'm here because of truth. And truth, no matter how painful, deserves to be spoken. The judge nodded. Thank you, Ms. Harris. The sentencing proceeded immediately after. The prosecutor presented irrefutable evidence. 6 fraudulent loan accounts for credit cards opened in my name, a mortgage with a digitally forged signature, and a second loan used to pay off gambling debt. All traced back to my stepfather, Frank Weston, a former banker who used his knowledge of the system for personal gain. The judge announced the sentence. 7 years in prison, no parole for the first 3 years, plus financial restitution and legal costs. Frank said nothing. He just bowed his head. I didn't know whether he felt remorse, or was already planning his next move. That same afternoon, I received a call from the Federal Investigation Office. Logan had been arrested at a gas station near the Arizona border. He was using fake documents trying to flee into Mexico. When stopped, he denied everything, until they found a bank card in his wallet under my name. A card I never even knew existed. "We'll extradite him to Denver within 48 hours, the investigator said. The charges include identity fraud, federal flight, and unlawful use of personal information. Given the severity, he could be facing 10 to 15 years. I stayed quiet for a moment, then simply said thank you and hung up. That evening my mother called. Her name on the screen made me hesitate, but I answered. Her voice was choked. Frank was taken to the facility. The police came this morning to seal the house. They took everything. I sat on the sofa holding a cup of tea gone cold. That house is in my name. It was purchased with forged documents. They have the right to seize it. I have nowhere else to go, my mother whispered. Logan's been arrested. You're all I have left. Those words struck me like a cold gust of wind. But not because they hurt. It was because I suddenly realized, my whole life I had always been their place to return to, even when they were the very ones who pushed me away the farthest. Do you remember how many times you turned away when Logan did something wrong? I asked. When you told me you're stronger so you should sacrifice? When you said, it's no big deal, family doesn't keep score? I didn't think it would come to this, she sobbed. No one ever does, I said. But grown-ups take responsibility. Always have. Now it's your turn. I hung up the phone. Not in anger, but with a calm resolve. After years of living in the shadow of blind loyalty, I had finally stepped into the light of truth. And I knew the road ahead was long, but this time it was mine. No one would ever use my name to build lies again. I signed the land purchase agreement on a spring afternoon, when mist still clung to the lake surface and the pine trees were just starting to bud. The lot wasn't big, just over 5 acres. Tucked deep in the western woods of Evergreen Lake, with a small trail leading to an old dock. When I stepped out of my car and set foot on the gravel and dirt, it felt like I was touching a dream that had been asleep for years. Everything was in my name. No one else. No forged documents, no one signing on my behalf, no family quietly listed as co-owner. Just me, Natalie Harris, clear, independent, and unafraid. Ethan called 2 weeks later. His voice hadn't changed. Low, calm, but slightly unfamiliar, like someone treading carefully around a place where they'd once been hurt. I read the article, he said. And I read your victim statement. You're stronger than anyone I've ever known. I was quiet for a moment. Ethan and I had been in love when I was still tangled in the role of carrying an entire family on my back. He was the first person to ask me, if no one needed your help, how would you live? And I hadn't known how to answer. I used to think being strong meant staying silent, I said softly. Now I know. Sometimes strength is having the courage to speak up even to the people you once loved. He asked if we could meet. Not to rekindle anything that had been broken, just to sit together. As two people who once understood each other deeply, now trying to see one another with new eyes. We met at the dock where I had just replaced a few weathered planks. The lake was still, the breeze gently disturbing the water's surface, creating soft ripples, like things left unsaid finally finding motion. Ethan brought 2 cups of hot coffee from the old cafe that had been our first date spot. We sat on the wooden steps looking out over the lake, quiet for a long time. I used to think you'd never escape them, he said. Not because you were weak, but because you were too good. Too bound by obligation. I thought so too, I smiled without bitterness. I spent years believing love was something you paid for, that to be loved I had to sacrifice, carry, and endure. He turned to look at me. And now? I pulled my hand from my coat pocket, set the coffee down, and let my fingers feel the crisp air. Now I understand that real love doesn't ask you to give up yourself. It's built on respect. On freedom. Without those things, it's not love. Ethan didn't speak. He just nodded, eyes drifting toward the horizon. You know, after we broke up, I was angry. But more than that, I was sad. Sad to see you disappear a little every time your family called. I nodded. I didn't see it at the time. I thought I was the only one who could keep the family from falling apart. But really, I was just holding together pieces no one else wanted to fix. A light breeze swept through, carrying the scent of young pine and damp earth. I breathed deeply, spine straight, not bracing for anything anymore. Ethan reached for a twig and traced the outline of a house in the dirt. "If you were going to build a house here, what would it look like?" I smiled, my eyes lighting up. A small cabin, steep roof facing the lake. A workspace in the back with big windows for the sun. I'd plant vegetables by the side and build a little wooden bridge out to the dock. He looked at me, then laughed gently. "It's exactly like the sketch you sent me 3 years ago. This time I'll actually build it. No one's stopping me now." We stayed until the sun dipped behind the trees. No pressure, no expectations. Just presence, soft, quiet at the start of something new. And I knew whether Ethan returned or not, I'd be okay. Because finally I was living for myself, not as someone else's shadow. On Saturday evening, a soft breeze swept in from the lake, carrying the scent of wild grass and clean water. I sat on the wooden chair I had assembled myself, holding a mug of hot cocoa, feet resting on the open window ledge. The cabin, just under 3 months old, still smelled faintly of pine. The curtains I had sewn by hand swayed gently, and the crackle of firewood from the back patio made the night feel both calm and alive. Outside, Mia held the tongs while Ethan tended to the grill. They teased each other over who made better roasted potatoes. From where I sat, the soft yellow light from the kitchen wrapped the yard in a kind of warmth I'd never known before. I opened my laptop, meaning to review some technical documents about the water treatment system we were building in Jefferson County, but a notification appeared on the screen: Colorado State Court, request for comment on clemency petition. I clicked the email. It was brief, with an attachment. Frank Weston, my stepfather, was requesting early release on medical grounds. End-stage pancreatic cancer, not much time left. His lawyer had submitted a petition for humanitarian considerations. I read it once, then quietly closed my laptop. I didn't feel shaken. I didn't feel angry. Just an odd sense of stillness. I stepped outside. Ethan looked up. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said. "It's from the court. About Frank." Mia paused, looking over. "Want to talk about it?" I sat on the patio watching the embers deepen in color. "He's asking for early release because he's sick. The court wants my input." Ethan was silent for a few seconds. "What are you going to say?" I looked down at my hands. These past months I'd rebuilt so much. My records, my home, myself. But I had never thought about this moment, when the dust had settled and a letter like this would arrive. "I'm not going to object," I said quietly. "As long as he never has access to my finances or legal rights again." Mia nodded, saying nothing. Ethan just looked at me, his eyes softer than ever. "There was a time I thought forgiveness meant letting people come back," I said. "Now I understand that sometimes forgiveness is just what allows you to move forward. I don't want to carry resentment. But I'm not going back. I've drawn my boundary. And my family now are the people who respect that line." We had dinner outdoors. The ribs were smoky, the potatoes tender, and soft jazz played from the small speaker on the windowsill. No one brought up Frank again. No one needed to. Some goodbyes don't require parting words. Only a door closed, never to be opened again. After dinner, I returned to the porch, reopened my laptop, and typed my response to the court's email. My fingers moved slowly, clearly across the keyboard. "I do not oppose the clemency request. However, I require a legally binding condition that Frank Weston shall never be granted access to any of my accounts, assets, or use of my identity under any circumstances. My family now consists of those who respect boundaries." I read it once more, then hit send. It felt like setting down a heavy stone I had carried on my back for far too long. When I looked up, the sky was full of stars. The lake was still, like a mirror reflecting soft light, casting a calm over everything around us that felt almost unreal. Ethan handed me a light jacket. Mia came out from the kitchen with 3 cups of herbal tea. I leaned back in my chair, hands wrapped around the warm cup, and for the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about who needed me, who was waiting on me, or who might blame me. I didn't lose a family. I removed the ones who chose to trade love for money. What's left, I keep for myself, and for those who stayed through sincerity. No demands. No pressure. No deceit. Just presence, honest and whole. Like tonight. Like the stars. Like the quiet laughter drifting across the porch from the people I now call home. If you've listened this far, maybe you've felt those invisible boundaries in your own family too. Maybe it was a comment that made you feel small, a silence that hurt more than words, or a time you were told to sacrifice because of duty. I'm sharing this not to blame or condemn, but to remind you. Sometimes the bravest thing isn't forgiveness, it's drawing a boundary. I don't know what your story looks like, but if you've ever felt out of place in your own home, I want you to know you're not alone. Leave a comment and tell me what you've been through. You never know, your story might give someone else the courage they've been waiting for. If you'd like to join me in more true stories about family, connection, and the journey of finding yourself again, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. There's so much more I want to share with you about unexpected reunions, unhealed wounds, and the small, quiet things that help me heal piece by piece. Thank you for listening. And if today you're wondering whether you deserve a life of peace, I hope you know the answer is yes. Always yes.